How long could Ukraine survive if Donald Trump completely cuts off the US aid given to them? Can Europe collectively save them? Why did Zelensky not accept the peace treaty proposed by Donald Trump when Ukraine is in a weak negotiating state? What would happen if the US cuts off military aid to Ukraine after this? The US is, Trump is, I'm pretty sure, in the process of cutting off all aid to Ukraine. I'm sure some announcements have already been made. I'm not going to go and look into the details right now because we are in a live stream right now. But yes, the process has started. Trump is going to cut off aid to Ukraine. See, Trump came to power with a number of promises. He made a number of promises, right? One of the promises is that he was going to end the Ukraine war essentially the first day of his presidency. He said it's been a bit longer than that. People understand it takes time, but he's already made the moves and taken actions that and reached out to Putin and spoken with Putin on the phone, etc. And the process of the end game of the Ukraine war is already in motion. So Trump is keeping his promise, right? And the only question then is that what happens to Ukraine? What terms does Ukraine get? What happens to Zelensky, which is not that important. Ukraine is more important, not Zelensky. So essentially, the fate of Ukraine will be decided by Trump and Putin. Zelensky is not a legitimate leader. He's a dictator. He's a puppet. He's a puppet of the US. And puppets don't get to make choices. And he has no leverage over anyone. He is alive and breathing at the pleasure of his master, his hegemonic master, the US. So look, what's going to happen now is Trump has no interest anymore in talking with Zelensky. He made it very clear that we can't do business with this attitude of yours. That's what he told Zelensky. And so what's going to happen now is that Trump and Putin are going to have a round of discussions. Their minions, subordinates, like the Secretary of State of the US, Rubio, and Sergei Lavrov of Russia, they will meet multiple times and they're going to negotiate the parameters of the ceasefire. And Putin's going to get what he wants. He's going to keep the territories his nation has conquered from Ukraine and a number of other things. And I'm sure the end game, the deal between the US and Russia, will include the expulsion from power of Volodymyr Zelensky. I'm pretty sure. So it's almost like I'm making a prediction here. Why did Zelensky not accept this? Because it's the end for him then, right? Why is he relevant today? Because the media has propped him up, has lionized him as this great defender of Ukraine, right? He's relevant in the world today because the war is going on. The moment the war ends, his relevance, legitimacy, everything ends. So he wants this war to keep going on. And the EU leaders also seem to want this war to keep going on. Because their legitimacy also is to some extent tied to the war. And the choices they have made in the past 3 years tie them to the fate of Zelensky. So Ukraine is not in a weak negotiating state. Ukraine has zero leverage. Ukraine has no more say in its eventual fate and destiny. So the US will essentially cut off aid to Ukraine. If the EU wants to step in and give some aid, we'll see how that goes. It won't end very nicely for whoever does that in the EU as well. I don't think Europe can collectively save Ukraine. I'm sure they can give some money to Ukraine, but what about the arms and ammunition that Ukraine needs to keep fighting the war? Does Europe have any of that? They don't have much of that. Does France want to spend a significant amount of its GDP propping up Zelensky and continuing this war, which has no real benefit for anyone? I don't think so. It doesn't make any sense economically. So Ukraine will not survive once Donald Trump cuts off aid. So the eventual fate of Ukraine is going to be decided by Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump has no interest in the war. Putin knew that he just needs to keep the war going. I've said this so many times. It's been a slow war scenario. It's been a frozen conflict by design. If Putin wanted, he could have flattened Ukraine. He chose not to, because there's no point doing that, right? And so on. So yeah, that's the situation right now.